you're supposed to be doing, right? That doesn't mean all of you are supposed to be on the sideline of some sports game. But you're just supposed to be where God has you to be, doing what God wants you to be, and not doing the things that He doesn't want you to do. Let's let God define the do's and the don'ts. We get so stressed out. Can I keep up, right? And I believe it. We have so much going on because when you believe your worth comes from what you do too much trying to prove yourself. I've seen this time and time and time again. Listen to the words of Jesus. Let's let Him redefine it, right? Jesus said, take my yoke upon you. All you you're busy, you're running around, you can't keep up, you can't keep the law, you're trying to be religious and righteous on your own. No, learn from me. Did you ever read in the Gospels where Jesus ran in a hurry to get somewhere? Like, He wasn't even running across the water. You would think, like, if you were going fast across the water, it might make more sense, that He wouldn't sink. But He was just walking on the water. And I imagine even when He fed those 4,000 and 5,000, He wasn't like, come on, guys, let's go. Keep up with me here. You don't get any of that in the story. You just kind of picture thousands of people, and Jesus is He's just walking along. He's just passing it out. People are just in awe of what's going on. There's no hurry. There's no rush. Jesus says, I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find what? Rest for your souls. So if your soul doesn't feel a rest this morning, there's a reason. And it isn't because God's putting more on your plate. He said, for my yoke is what?
Easy.
My yoke is easy and my burden is light. John, in the book of 1 John, he says in chapter 5, the commandments of Jesus are not, so he uses the same word, are not burdensome. In other words, what God expects, His commandment, right? His commandment for us in our lives is one thing. One commandment. Love God through loving people. That's the commandment. And John says, that's not a burden. Like your life as a Christian, loving other people, yes, it's hard sometimes. People, don't like it. And there's trouble, right? Jesus said, in this world you have trouble. Take heart, I've overcome the world. You don't have to be anxious for anything, right? But in everything, with prayer and supplication, just present your request to God, and He'll give you the peace that you need. The peace, the gentleness, the easiness, the lightness of His burden. Most people I know would say, my yoke is hard, my burden is heavy. I mean, just people I meet on every day, right? Montgomery County. Hey, how you doing? Man, I just made it to practice. I'm talking to all these parents, and I mean, it's great. Practice at 5 o'clock. How do you get to 5 o'clock practice in Montgomery County? Tell me that. I mean, I don't understand how anybody makes it on time. Like, are people working? Coach is there, everybody's there, we get started. Man, everybody's making it by the hair, It's crazy. Man, I got to get here, I got to get this ready, I got to make sure this looks good, got to get our life together, got to prepare this, do this, projects to do, cleaning. We're overwhelmed, we've got so much going on, right? Maybe you can relate. But Jesus says, if you're yoked with Him, if you're joined with Jesus, if you're connected to the vine, if the branch is connected to the vine, and you're doing life with Him, the yoke is easy, the burden is light. He will empower you. I was looking at my day today. So I'm preaching, then, I'm so excited. I shouldn't even tell you this, those who don't know, but I'm teaching Sunday school. Yes, excited about that. And then I'm going from here to the Vietnamese church. They asked me to come. They asked Laura and I to come talk to their young adults about marriage and dating. Ah! Dream world. So yeah, I mean, it's like back. It's kind of bit. But I told Laura this morning, man, I am jacked. I just feel like today I'm in the sweet spot. This is so exciting. I mean, at the end of the day, we're gonna die, But I don't feel a burden. I'm not overwhelmed by it. Now some of you, that would be like, you'd freak out, right? And you should. And if I had your job, I'd freak out, because I'm not supposed to do that. But when you're doing what you're supposed to do, it's great, right? Life is too short. Just listen to this. I heard this I heard this phrase the other day, man, I want to pass it on to you. This is so good. Life is too short and precious to waste it being miserable. That's not it, right? But that's true. Life is so short. It's so precious. You shouldn't waste your life doing something you don't love. And when I heard this, it was this little 5-minute podcast. I thought, wow, life is too short to not do what you love. That doesn't mean you're going to have a job every day you're just going to love. And automatically, after you hear this, that you're just go out later today and do what you love to do. That's not the idea, right? But your life, young people, if you start to get this right now, you start to discover how God wired you, what your strengths are, and you start ordering your life in the years to come. And then in college, you're taking classes, you're pursuing things that you love. And then if you can connect in some way your career to what you love, your life is going to be amazing. Because God wired you that way. He wired us all differently, right? So here's what the guy said. Do what you love and serve others while you do it. Or serve others with what you're doing. Isn't that great? You know, so I'm trying to teach Elijah. He loves football. So I'm saying, okay, well, serve people. Reflect Jesus on the football field. Reflect Jesus to your teammates. And if God, last night he's talking about how he's going to be busy playing in the NFL. Okay, well, if you can play high school football, I don't know about that. Went to a high school game a couple weeks ago. Those boys are big these days. Some hosses, man. Quince Orchard, there's a lot of teams I haven't seen, but I saw Quince Orchard, Damascus. Man, those boys are big. I don't know about Elijah. We'll see. But I'm saying, hey, if that's what you love, serve other people while you're doing it and reflect Jesus. Jesus said, I only do what I see my Father doing. In other words, I'm not trying to prove anything to anyone. Jesus couldn't have cared less about what other people thought, right? He was the least popular guy around, right? Yes, he had flocks turning to him, and he had flocks turning away from him. And ultimately, he was hung on a cross. So, God, define the do's and don'ts. I'll do what you call me to do, and I won't do the rest. That's a hard lesson that I've been learning over the years. Maybe some of you have a to-do list, right? You have a to-do list. I'm a big fanatic of to-do lists, right? I have this great new app that I use. I pay for it, because it's awesome. Well, maybe what some of us need is a to-don't list. A to-don't. Here's what I'm going to not do. There are things that I'm not going to do anymore. I used to do them, but not anymore. God, you define what I do. You define the things I don't do. I used to think that being a good leader or a better leader, in order to be a better leader, a good leader, I had to do more. I want to do more. I want to say yes, and I'm just willing, and it's taken me a long time. But I found out that to be a more effective leader, I have to do less so that I can do what I am supposed to do better. Because there's a place that I fit in, that I'm supposed to give my best to, and then there's a barrier, a boundary, right? A boundary. And my boundary ends right where someone else's boundary begins. And it's so important that I don't step into that, and I volunteer to say yes to that thing that someone else is supposed to do. It doesn't make me more spiritual or more better if I'm doing someone else's job and my job. How is that? But we think that, don't we? If we see somebody that's really busy, oh, they must be more committed. Yeah, they might be more committed to care what you think. But are they more committed to do only what God says that they're to do? One of my heroes, my mentor in seminary, he taught me, this is hard. It was hard for me to hear this. It's hard for me to even say it. But he just was drilling into me the importance of letting God and God alone set your agenda. You start letting other people set your agenda. Get ready for an overworked, overstressed, crazy, very not totally satisfying life. Because you're never going to get to the end of that. So let God define what we do and what we don't do. Number 3. Thought number 1, let God define the do's and the don'ts. Number 2, let God define the when and the then. Okay? There's only 2 points. Let God define the when and the then. For those of you who live with a performance mentality, I am what I do, then you might have a mile-long list a trail that goes behind you of whens and thens. When I get everything where I want it, then I'll start really living. When I accomplish this goal, then we will start whatever. We'll get that project started, whatever. The when and then. The problem is, for the performance mentality, we have so many whens that the thens rarely come. We have a list of when this happens, when I get this, when that happens, when I'm out of debt, when I get the right job, when my kids finally get to a certain age, and then, I hear stories of people who, they're grandparents, and then they didn't get the thens. They never made it to the thens. James 4:13 really illustrates this for us. James says, now listen, you who say, today or tomorrow we'll go to this or that city, we'll spend a year there, we'll carry on business and make money. It's not wrong to have a plan, but this is the person who has this very definitive, this is what we got to do. This is what we're going to do. Verse 14, why? You don't even know what will happen tomorrow. What is your life? You are a mist. It appears for a little while and then poof, vanishes. So quit being busy living your whole life out today. Live your whole life out today. Doesn't mean don't make plans. I like to have plans, and I like to have goals and a year, year-to-year thing, 5-year goals, all that kind of thing. Nothing wrong. Some people are more wired like that, some people less. It's really irrelevant. But it's the heart of that. It's the heart of that arrogance that says, I'm going to live this out, versus, God, this is my plan, but I'm inviting you into it. I want to be in line with what you want me to do. How does it play out in everyday life? Well, when I'm in high school, then. Just can't wait. Just once I'm in high school, then. Or, man, when I get to college, you listen to your parents and you're like, yeah. And then in your other ear, you're going, when I get to college. Oh, then just look out, Mom. Right? Yeah. Oh, when the kids get older, honey, then we're going to spend lots of time together. No, I'll take you out on dates when the kids get a little older. I wrestle with that one. When we get our career established, then we'll get married. When we get our finances in order, then we'll be where we want to be. Then we'll spend time with our kids. When we get this paid off, then we'll start to give and be more generous. When we get a nice enough house, then we'll host a fellowship. When we get settled down in life, then we'll start serving in church. And the then never comes, or so often it never comes. The performance mentality, always a giant to kill, a mountain to climb, a task to compete, always another goal just around the corner. A pastor recently visited a guy on his deathbed. This is a true story. He's a guy that most Americans would admire. Success in every way the world would say. And he said something to the pastor through his tears that is so powerful. I want to pass it on to you. He said this, Pastor, the things that I thought were most important, career, job, house, image, car, boat, retirement, he had all those things. The things that I thought were most important stole from me the things that were really most important. The things I thought were so important, they stole the things that were really important, like my family, like serving in my church, like making sure that my life counts for something more than what I have. So, what's your greatest when then? What's your greatest when then? Take some time this week in your bulletin on the bottom. I'd love for just even a few of you. Take this with you. Use this. Spend some time today thinking about, what is my greatest when then? When this happens then. Write it out, name it, and then turn from it. And say, God, no, I'm not gonna win then anymore. What are you calling me to do right now? What are the most important things right now? I mean, 6th graders, middle schoolers, high schoolers, God is active in your life. He's longing for you to just turn to Him, and He's willing and ready to show you His power. He's willing to reveal Himself to you in ways that are so relevant to where you are and what you think about yourself and how you view others. He's so willing and ready for that. So this week, live your week out with your true identity based on what God says who you really are. Most important things are right in front of you. Primarily, they're people. Right? Loving God, loving people. And so you need to cultivate your relationship with God and people at the same time. Cultivate your relationship with God. Cultivate your relationship with people. Please, for the sake of the one who gave his life for you, pursue things that are first importance things this week. Pursue things that matter this week. You are not what you do. You're not what you did. You are who God says you are. And we must live in that reality. I want to pray with you and pray for you. And let's just spend a minute being honest before God before we respond with communion this morning.